Well, g'day everyone, it's Warren here from NQ Explorers along with Colleen. Another gold prospecting video. We're back on the site we were at 2 weeks ago where I did some cradling and panning, and we got some really nice pickers out of some flood gold. In those ensuing 2 weeks the creek is now dried up, but there are some little water holes I can use to cradle. So I'm going to go back to my same sample spot. We'll see how that's changed over the last 2 weeks with the dry weather. And that'll illustrate how little flow you get out of these creeks, even with a massive rain event. I'll go back to my sample hole. I'll explain what I'm doing there. I'll give you some gold prospecting tips along the way, and then we'll bring the sample back up to where I've set up the cradle at a new water hole, because the one from 2 weeks ago is dried up. And we'll start cradling some gravel and see if we can get some more pickers out of that spot. Failing that, we'll do a couple of runs in the cleanup. I'll go back up the creek where there's some nice gravel wash. And over here, actually just sort of behind where the Land Rover is, there's a nice slaty rock bar that's sort of perpendicular to the creek flow, so it's a lovely little trap there. And that would have got some recent gold deposited there too, so let's get into it. Okay, here's my new setup. Plenty of water here to cradle away for a day with my little jam tin dipper. Got my sample bucket there. We'll head down behind the camera is where I was cradling 2 weeks ago, and where I got the sample, and further up this creek line past this log jam there's some nice spots where I can get some gravel up in there. So we'll go for a walk down the creek and grab a sample. Right, this is where I was cradling 2 weeks ago. You can see my little mullock heap there. There's quite a bit of water in this little billabong. I mean, there would be if I dug a hole, but I need free water so I can dip the jam tin in to feed the hopper. So can't use this spot, but we'll head down that way to where I took the sample, and because I know I'll get nice pickers out of that spot, and I'll explain what I was doing down there 2 weeks ago, and we'll endeavour to get a sample from the same layer. Righto, here's my sampling location. Out of that small area, I've got some really nice pickers and a lot of fine gold. The reason being where we are, we're in the centre of a creek. There's kind of the main channel over there, and an ana branch on this side, and this large deposition in the centre, it's probably been here for 10,000 years, is where all the silt and fines get trapped. Now, I don't know what the depth of the bottom is here, the bedrock bottom, but that doesn't matter, because the gold here is located on a false bottom, which is a sticky clay layer, which is only about 200 mil down, 8 inches or so. If you sample too deep, you get into some barren ground. It's just a gravelly clayey gravel. But if you get that right layer, that's where the deposition takes place in this particular spot, and it's typical of this area. That's why in this area the old timers used puddlers to process the heavy clays to get the fine gold. There is nuggety gold in here, and there's some hard rock mines in the distance, but it's always shedding into this area. It has been for several million years, I suppose. The reefs are long gone, but it's coming out of somewhere upstream. There's obviously little reefs that are shedding light amounts of gold, but the main mountains are long gone. And of course it's all been folded and faulted since it all took place in the first instance. So really, the old adage, gold is where you find it, but there are things you can do in the bush to make it easier to find gold. Right, I've got a bigger shovel this time. I only had a little folding shovel last time. This is full of water. When I was here last time, I dug into the water table. Well, the flood table, if you like to call it that. So here, on my last sample, I went too deep. I can see there's a little shelf where I took my first sample, and that's where I got the best gold. So what I'm going to do is, I'll take the top, because that's the flood gold gravel, and then I'll go down to the sticky clay layer and no deeper. And that's where my sample will be, where I believe I'll get the most gold. So let's get into it. Now, this material is still moist, but it was saturated last time I was here. So I will have to wet it up in the hopper on the cradle before I can process it properly, because I need to break that clay up. Yeah, it's pretty sticky, it's good. I like it. But I'll continue with the sample, and I'll meet you back at the gold cradle. This is my sample. I've just about got a full bucket here. We'll do 8 or 9 buckets today, I guess. This is the layer I'm talking about. You can see that's a silty clay. and that is where the gold tends to hang up, in this spot. That's where I got the pickers from last time. This material here, as you can see, it just slices out. It is a clay. Now if I keep going deep, I'll bust through that to a gravel layer which tends not to have the gold. I mean, at great depth, wherever the bedrock is, well, we're going to have larger gold down there, but I'm not sure where that is in this spot. I actually have got an auger. I could auger it and sample it, but I mean, if I want to go to that much trouble. But let's see how we go here. We did it right here last time. So on this layer, in this spot, we should do all right. We should get some colour. Okay, ready to go. I've got a sample, cradle set up. I've got plenty of water. It's going to get pretty messy, but it pretty much is. A lot of tannin in it, of course, because of the leaves. Just make sure that back baffle's sitting correctly after transporting. It's good. Hopper's ready to go. That's the quarter inch 6mm snake wire mesh in there. It's not a woven mesh, it's a pressed mesh, so that's very strong. I'll just wet the carpet down. Get things ready to go. We've got deeper water out here. I have got my mud boots, so I might go and get them so I can stand in the water. Anyway, we'll get cracking here. I'll put a sample in here and wet it up in the hopper there. Bring everything closer to the action. Yeah, that's quite clayey. Not much gravel in it though, it's just clay, which is good. So I'll just wet that up. Get the sample nice and wet, because last time I was here I didn't have to do this because it was at liquid limit. The material was so wet, it was great. It really cut down the work, but now I've got to make sure it's nice and wet, otherwise it won't break up in the hopper. And what happens is the clay retains the small gold, goes through the 1/4 inch mesh, and actually can roll out the bottom of the box because it's a clay ball. So that's what we're dealing with. I'm just going to go and change my boots so I can get in that water. Back shortly. Righto. I've got boots on now to suit for what I'm doing. Now, just before we start, I mean, you've obviously seen this cradle before if you've watched my channel for any period of time. I did that video a couple of weeks ago. I got some nice gold here. If you're interested in building your own cradle, this is a 2-foot half-scale cradle. Like the old timers were generally 4 feet, which is what you could handle on a pack horse or a wheelbarrow. This is 2 feet long. I've made it portable so you can, you know, take it way up the creek if you want to, away from your vehicle, and get to a spot where there's water like this, because I'm nowhere near the car. If you have a look in the cards at the top, I'll have a link to my build video, and in the build video there's a link to the paper plans you can print off to build your own cradle. Anyway, enough talking, let's get into it. Then I can get out in the water. I get plenty of water now. Just wet this material up in the hopper so it's nice and yeah, I've got the right layer there. It's very clayey. That's really hanging together, those clay balls. Last time I was here, I was able to make a slurry in the sample bucket and get it pulverised basically, but I can't do that today. That's not wet enough. So I've got to wet it in the hopper. Still haven't put the handle on the dipper. That was what I meant to do the last fortnight, but there you go. Saves your back a bit. Now I'll just mash this up. Actually, a few years ago I had a mate, he was cradling and panning up in the Palmer River. Looked down at his hopper and there was a silver threepence in there that the old timers had dropped in the creek. Didn't get anything in these old gold fields. The old timers didn't work just here, but upstream about 300 metres is a shallow alluvial mine. It's only about as big as an upside down Volkswagen Beetle. Downstream there's a lot of alluvial workings, but not this part of the creek. Clearly the old timers didn't think there was enough run of gold in this spot to work it thoroughly, but they did upstream and downstream. So anyway, there'll be enough here to keep me entertained. That's all I need today, a bit of colour, and we've had a great day. So we'll keep cradling and I'll get a few more samples. We'll run 5 or 6 buckets through before we do a clean-up. Yeah, it's running down the mat nicely. It's going really well. Angle's about right. Just checking we haven't got any 2 grammers plus quarter mil. Nice quartz in there. It's quite mineralised too, what you'd expect in a goldfield. I'll tip my oversize in one spot and I'll check it with the detector later, just in case there's a little specimen in there that I don't see in this muddy water. If I'd left this another 2 weeks, there'd be no water here at all. Boy, it dries out quick. We had so much rain here, nearly a metre of rain. This forest just sucked it all up. I mean, there's some luxuriant growth, so it's all gone to use, but you don't get much flow out of these gold-bearing creeks, which is the problem the old timers had. Of course, they used to stockpile material on the banks and wait for the rain, and then work like mad for 3 or 4 weeks of the year to process their gravel. I've just got to bust this clay, but see that there? That's that pale grey brown clay. That is really sticky, but I've really got to break that up because these kind of balls can just roll down and out the front of the hopper, out of the cradle. Beautiful day here today. It's only about 27 degrees. It's a lovely breeze. A few currawongs singing there before, so beautiful spot in the bush. Well, I'm really taking my time here. There's no hurry, obviously. I'm out prospecting, which is a very relaxing pastime. I'm breaking up the sample dry, as it is sampled, in the hopper, so that there's no clay lumps before I wet it. And then when I wet it, I'll continue to agitate it with my hand in case there's any clay samples that the hopper isn't breaking up with the agitation of the cradle. I just want to make sure I don't get any gold rolling out in those balls into the water, because it's going to be stuck in those clay balls. It's quite sticky. So it's a matter of just taking your time, knowing that's the layer with the gold, taking your time to process it properly. Okay, I'll just show you what I'm doing by way of pre-treatment with this material. Obviously you've got to adapt to your environment when you're prospecting. This was absolutely saturated 2 weeks ago. I'll put a link up now to the video I did just 2 weeks ago, and you'll see what this country looked like then and how this sample looked. Now what I'm doing is, there's my sample bucket. I've got the hopper half loaded. Now you can see that's a clay ball. I'm breaking this up by hand. Yes, it's time consuming, but I'm not like the old timers. I haven't got to make wages, have I? So I break this up by hand as much as I can, and then I'll go to pre-treat it in the hopper with just a bit of water to get the moisture content up nice and high. Bit of water is going to run through, but I need to get that material really wet so that the agitating of the hopper breaks up the clay. You can see that the hopper actually, you can see that gap there, it slides backwards and forwards on these little aluminium rails. That's all in my build video. So now I kind of pre-treated the material. I can agitate it so it becomes a muddy slurry. We haven't got a lot of water transferring at the moment, but you can see there's some there now. Now that aluminium panic bar at the bottom is stopping a lot of the clay in solution, but that doesn't matter because none of the gold will make it that far. The larger pieces will be on this mat here, and the smaller ones and the pickers on the base mat. Very unlikely for the gold to travel that far because I haven't got it at a great angle and there's no great flow of water going on. So that's what I'm doing to process the material. Okay, by way of illustration, this is a piece that came out of my sample bucket. As you can see, it's a silty clay, and you can see that it's actually got small quartz gravel in it. There's ironstone, there's fine gravel, not much sand, it's mostly clay. And this is what I'm doing, I'll just break it up like this. I need to get that clay into solution basically, at liquid limit, in the slurry to run down through the hopper. So there's another example of a clay ball which could have fine gold all through it. You can see why the gold sticks in that layer when it gets wet. It's just incredibly sticky. Okay, I've finished my first run. I've just emptied the hopper. Sample bucket's empty. That's the first mat. I'll check that, see there's no pickers in there. Then I'll remove the base mat, wash it out in a bucket of water. Then we'll pan it off in the big super sluice pan. So the cleanup begins. That's the first run. Then we'll have a bit of lunch. Come back and do some more after lunch. Okay, cleanup begins. I'll just take that back mat baffle off. Check for pickers. Can't really see it's that muddy. Invert it in the bucket with the water. Make sure I get all the, any gold in that will drop out of it with a bit of agitation. Can't see any nuggets, but hope springs eternal. Now this is the main carpet out of the bottom of the cradle. So I've got to invert that in there so I don't lose anything in the mud here. Just wash it off. Gold will just straight. Well, a really fine stuff, as I mentioned in my last video, I should burn this carpet because it's about 10 years old and it's probably got a little tiny, it'll have fine gold all through it. So, but anyway, for today's exercise, we'll just invert it in the bucket as we usually do. All good. Now, the body of the rocker could have some gold where it's worked its way under the mat. I've been cradling for about an hour, I suppose. So what I'll do now is just make sure I get all the fines, the mud and the heavies out of the base of the, because there's a bit of that clay stuck under where the mat was. And we'll just make sure we haven't got anything left up in there. It'll go home with me anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I always check it when I get home. Okay. Clean that panic bar off because I'll pan that off. Righto. I'll get this into the pan and we'll start panning. Got to make sure I get all the heavies out of the bucket and into the pan. Pretty simple process. Which is, like I said, it won't be possible in a couple of weeks. This water hole won't be here. You know, you'd have to cart water in. Still possible to do it, of course. Jerry can, a couple of jerry cans in a tub, you can do it. Righto, let's pan this off and see if we've got any colour. So it's just a matter of agitating the material so that it's in suspension and the heavies will fall to the bottom of the pan. These Garrett super sluices with the 45-degree riffles, they're the best pans in the world. Now, important when you buy your pan, you've got to season it. The plastic ones will have a mould release agent. You can put them in the dishwasher or just scrub them with a bit of detergent. Rough them up with a bit of sand. Make sure you take that mould release agent off them. If you're using a tin dish, where you can just put it in the fire and burn it, and that'll season it. Because if you don't do that, you'll suffer surface tension and the tiny bits of gold will float out and you'll lose them over the top of the pan with the water. But this pan here, well, it's at least 20 years old, so it's pretty well seasoned. Just take your time with this, there's no hurry. This is the fun part of prospecting. Of course it could be heartbreaking too at the same time. I suppose I might have done about 20 kilos there of that material. It's not completely dry, but it's about 20 kilos by weight, I would think. Just based on the bucket that I carried back through the bush. Nice to hear a bit of bird life in here because with the water, then you get the birds. Come up here in high summer, there's just nothing. It's dead quiet. because it's so hot and dry. And there's always the flies, of course. If you get larger pieces in the pan, which I won't today because it's sub quarter mil, this is sub quarter inch, sub 6 mil. It's been through that hopper, so it's sieved. If you're just panning in the creek and you sieve it down with the 10 mil Garrett sieve or any sieve you're using, you may have some oversize. You can brush off the back of off the pan with the back of your hand, but I won't have any today. Let's have a look here. I can see I've got a little bit of colour. No significant pickers like last time out of that spot. But we'll continue on and do another bucket. I've definitely got colour. But at the end of the day I'll do some still shots of what we get. Righto, well we're going to have a bit of lunch and continue on cradling. So if you're new to prospecting, there are areas you can sample to maximise your chances of finding gold. Basically in a flood you get the low pressure zones where the heavies drop out of the stream. So that's going to be downstream of large obstacles in the creek like a boulder or a big tree, a log maybe, definitely a rock bar, and inside bends where you got the low pressure zone, the stream scours the outside bend and it drops the heavies on the inside bend, and you'll see the gravel bars there. We'll just walk down the creek and have a look. So here's your main creek, it's flowing downhill towards us. You've got a scoured gully coming in from the side, and as you can see there's some nice bedrock slate exposed. Great spot for a gold trap. Brush the crevice out with your crevicing tool and a dustpan and brush, and take every little piece out of that crevice, because the rock will be fairly rotten. You'll be able to break a lot of that slate up. And then further up the creek we've got another little re-entrant coming in, and there's another little slate bar, and there's more slate up in the creek further up, so we're going to have a look at that. Now this creek was flowing gently 2 weeks ago, now it's almost bone dry. You can see there's some damp spots, but no free water. There would be if I dug a hole in a survival situation and get water to drink. You can see slate exposed there in the bed of the creek, and up here we're getting into an area that's quite rocky. We've got bedrock, not the ideal angle for what we're looking for, but there's a big piece of chunk of bedrock further up, and this creek here drains quite a large area, so it's all auriferous. You see Colleen up there in the distance with the gold master looking for nuggets. So chances are there's good small gold and even pickers in behind all this slate. We'll have a little sample and take the pan down and see if we can find any. Okay, here's my second run. I've got a lovely picker here, as you can see. Hope that shows up on the camera. I'll circle it for you. And there's lots of fine stuff in there. So that's the only real picker I've got from that spot so far, but it's a matter of getting the sampling depth correct, because I deliberately went too deep, got nothing, and I went back on the like the clay bench where I'd been working, and I got that beautiful picker out of there just now, and that was wasn't a real large sample, that second run. Probably only a third of what the first run was, so nice picker there and some fine gold. I'll get some photographs at the end of the video so you can see it properly, but that's a beauty, that one. Okay, we're just going to clean up now and load up the landy. You can see the march flies have moved in there on the bucket there. I've got that little sample to a pan that Colleen got out of a rock crevice up the creek. As you can see, this water, it's very shallow and muddy and there's not much left of it now. There's actually a couple of tiny little freshwater crayfish in there, but I don't hold out any hope for them. Although they do bury themselves in the mud for quite a long time before the next rain, so there's hope for them, I guess. But we'll tidy up here and do a bit of a wrap up. Well, if you think about getting into prospecting, you don't need much gear, as I've said in previous videos. A couple of good Garrett gold pans, they're the best. Get the Garretts. They're $30 for the big one and $25 for a gold trap, I think, or you can buy the kits, which are $75 or $100, depending on how much you want in it. A where to prospect book and vials and snuffer bottles and a sieve come in those kits. Build your own cradle or just go panning. Great activity for the kids. It's always cooler in the creek in the summer. If you can find a spot where you've got water, do your research on your gold fields. They're everywhere in Australia, especially East Coast, up and down the Great Divide. You can pretty much pan gold from Cape York to Melbourne if you really wanted to try. Not to say that these were gold fields that the old timers felt were worth working, but for the recreational prospector, definitely work a bit of a fiddle around with a pan. And there's also gemstones, rubies and diamonds to be found, and then of course agate and all that sort of stuff. There's lots to be done in the world of fossicking, so have a think about it. It's a great family pastime, good way to get the kids out of the house off the iPads and just be out in the Aussie bush. Awesome stuff. Okay, this is another one of the Garrett pans. It's a 14-inch gold trap. As you can see, it's asymmetric and it's got a large base and a large area at the back there where you can work your oversize out the back of the pan. 90-degree riffles in the front, just like on the super sluice. That's Garrett's sieve, which is about a 10mm, which you can get your sub 10mm material to run through your pans when you've reduced all your oversize from your cradle or wherever you've got your material. They fit on the top of a bucket perfectly. That's what they're designed to do. Just shovel your dirt in, check your oversize for nuggets, and sieve the sub 10. Okay, well, I'm going to head off home shortly. Colleen's still out with the detector. I haven't had a report from her. Hopefully there's a nugget in the pocket. I did probably 30 kilos of gravel there, material. One sample wasn't so good. I tried those rock bars, but you only got the tiniest bits of flour gold out of that. Very difficult to photograph that. I just did that with the pan, not with the cradle. But those pickers come out of that spot where I got the larger pieces like that 2 weeks ago when this creek was in flow. Now, another week and this water's gone, and that's the end of cradling in this area until next wet season. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that little day out, a little bit of prospecting, beautiful day in the bush, got a little bit of gold in the pocket. I know I haven't got rich, but that's not the object of being out here, is it? Thanks for watching, and happy fossicking. Bye for now.